everyone, and I'm really thrilled to be here today in person in the US with all the CPAS team and all the members from RDCA-DAP and the rare disease community. And I'm actually not alone, so let me just sort out how to run the slides. So today I'm also joined by Don Lowe, who is a scientific director of EHRIS, and he will explain a few words from his perspective. I think he has a unique profile. He's based in Amsterdam, but he's coming from the US and has been working for a long time in the US. And Don, if you would like to say a few words to introduce yourself, and then I'll go through my slides, and Don also have a few slides to present the work he's doing and his perspective from an American in Europe on how to globalize efforts in rare disease, and we can take a few questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks very much again. I'm thrilled also to be able to join. I can't see anyone in the audience, but I hope you're all lively, awake, happy, and I'll try, as he still says, to give you some idea of the efforts we have ongoing in rare disease, and in particular in drug repurposing. And I'm guessing most of you are Americans in the room, but maybe a smattering of those from other countries, and so I hope I'll be able to give also a bit of a perspective on how the American kind of approaches and the European approaches are really meshing these days, and that we're really facing a very exciting time in the next few years to work together as a global community.
Thank you, Don. Moving on, I would like to say a few words from CPAS in Europe before we embark into how to make activities in rare disease global. So CPAS has been present and active in Europe since its inception, and was a pioneer behind the parallel EMA FDA qualification procedure for safety biomarkers as drug development tools, and has regulatory science started to be a topic of discussion in Europe. They had office in Europe since 2012. However, like many of us in Europe had experienced the Brexit bump and had to move their office from London to now Amsterdam since 2022. And being in Europe has allowed them to develop activities, for example, particularly leading very important data work package in tuberculosis projects that are being run globally, but being led in Europe. And we also had the opportunity to really strengthen our relationship with EMA, also engage with WHO in pediatric activities, and we have now one roof in Europe, which is getting really robust with the data management team from Ireland and regulatory science experts working from the Netherlands office. The aim of the office in Europe is truly to leverage and develop CPAS and US European activities with the aim to facilitate global collaboration and, where possible, harmonization. But you don't always have to be fully harmonized to be compatible. There are local and regional differences that can be very well respected, making development compatible at global level. As explained, we are really working on strengthening our relationship with EMA, and I'll say a few words again in my presentation, as well as the European member states, and of course, develop collaboration with European key stakeholders and communities, particularly in rare disease at the moment, where there is a lot of activities in Europe, but not only. For example, the Translational Institute, where Don is based in Amsterdam, but also Quinten Health, with, and actually Billy is in the room, and we have a session right after with an organization specialized in real-world data and artificial intelligence, but always with the aim to advance global collaboration. So before going into detail about these activities, I really wanted to take the time that acknowledge some of the principles that apply to rare disease and are really driving some of the decision in this area. As you know, there are over 7,000 rare diseases that are affecting more than 30 million people in the US and an equal number in Europe. But it does not stop at Europe and US. All other regions are also affected. And while it is challenging to run development in rare disease, it is regulators' duty to ensure that medicines are safe and effective, and such an assessment do require clinical, robust, and relevant data. And here I really would like to share that in Europe, regulatory flexibility should not lead to lowering regulatory standards, despite challenges in running and conducting trials in small population. As these developments are also global, you run into challenges such as jurisdictional context related to local and regional specificities related to regulatory requirements, operational practicalities, standard of care, and cultural expectation that truly need to be considered when deploying trials and planning trials across different regions. But it is also leaving the opportunity to work together at global level, and why keep working on overcoming these challenges and keep on working at global level and investing efforts into facilitating global collaboration. Well, the first one is truly to overcome some of the feasibility aspects related to the small number of patients that you have in rare disease. It's also to allocate resources to those areas where studies are most needed. You cannot rerun trial after trial in the same population with rare disease. You need to ensure that every data that is being generated can be leveraged to contribute to regulatory evaluation, and you need to make sure you minimize the burden on the patient. So if you have the possibility to access data or knowledge and address some of the research questions, leveraging this existing knowledge to optimize the design of the studies in small population, everybody has the duty to aim at going in that direction. Also, working at global level help to better utilize scattered clinical expertise across territories and really get the community in some of the disease coming together and really sharing experience and supporting each other in making sure that the trials can be fit for all the regions. And working together at global level allow to generate robust and relevant data in a timely manner. I think we all know that it's a challenge to run trial in small population, and it can take years and years. And we also have the duty to make sure that the patient can access safe and efficacious medicines in a timely manner. So how to do that? In Europe and as well as in the US, there is a lot of investment being made around development and use of rare disease research coordinating centers. Collaborative studies and data sharing, as mentioned by Michel. Data sharing is really the essence of advancing good quality data and accelerating the development, and we are really working hard into facilitating global interoperability and facilitating common scientific approach and regulatory alignments in order to overcome some of the regional variations you may find. So some of the activities you will find, and I think, sorry, that it's jumping some slides, so I need to check. No, so I had a slide that was explaining what was the current background in Europe related to rare disease. So in 1999, the orphan regulation was first adopted in Europe. And recently, there have been, at the European Commission level, a work being conducted in order to analyze the strengths and weaknesses of the impact of the orphan regulation. And this analysis has been conducted in parallel with the revision of the pediatric regulation, because both of these regulations are aiming at addressing unmet needs in small population and really allowing to, and have managed to allow to have public and private investments orientated towards addressing these white spots and unmet need. And now it's time to really revise how can we keep on advancing the research in these unmet needs and how to address them best with new tools. So in 2019, a program was started, which is the European Joint Program for Rare Disease, and the European Commission had invested 55 million euros. Since 2019, CPAS has been collaborating with the team behind the program to advance technologies and methodologies that are fit for regulatory purposes and further global rare disease research and drug development. And here I really would like to congratulate Ramona, because she has really worked, and it's a challenge when you start to get two regions working on the same topic together. Like, it's a lot of effort to start to, first of all, speak the same language and then manage to deliver outcomes that allow for the two regions to work more easily together. And I think she has been extremely successful in doing so, and the work of CPAS into developing standard and oncology and ontology in order to facilitate global interoperability has paid off. And the follow-up program of this European Joint Program for Rare Disease, which is ending soon, is the European Rare Disease Research Alliance, and Christina Larsson from EMA yesterday alluded to it. It's called the Rare Disease Partnership. The deadline is in a few days, and here it's a budget from public funding of over 150 million in cash, as well as 150 million euros in kind from the partners, and it's mainly governments and key academic research centers that are being brought together. The idea of the project is truly to provide services from across Europe under one roof that can help to lead high-quality research and development projects and give access to multidisciplinary expertise, and as well ensure that every consenting patient living with a rare disease to be findable and enroll in a suitable clinical study necessary to generating an advanced diagnosis, understanding of the disease, and having regulatory compliance. So we are thrilled that following the work that CPAS has done in the European Joint Program Rare Disease, we have been invited to join this very important partnership, and we will receive funding from the European community to help advance regulatory science for drug development tools. And we have selected two case studies that have been selected for their advanced regulatory milestone achievement, as well as initial modeling experience with the RDCA-DAP platform. These two consortium are the Duchenne Muscular Regulatory Science Consortium and PKDOC for autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease. And the idea is to pave the way in Europe to scale up the RDCA-DAP concept, which is a concept that is very attractive to the European community, but also to regulatory science and developing drug development tools in Europe. We also had the opportunity to engage in international activities with WHO and become an official partner in a project that aims at improving access to essential medicines and formulation for children, where CPAS will be involved in the development of a pediatric data hub to improve availability, quality, and use of real-world data, but also help the WHO and partners to navigate global regulatory landscape using the most efficient pathways. Here, the starting point is not necessarily rare disease, but the aim is truly to scale up, again, like this center of excellence, to every disease, and pediatric oncology is already actually initiated, and if the project is successful in its first phase, rare disease may well become also a good candidate for this center. There is also investment from the Rare Disease Moonshot coming up, where CPAS has been invited to join. So the Rare Disease Partnership is public funding only, and the Rare Disease Moonshot, we are working here with also the organization from DON EHRIS, the European Translational Infrastructure in Europe. And the aim of this coalition is just to bring together experts that will avoid to have duplication of efforts and leverage complementarity of skills and expertise in rare disease to optimize and accelerate translational research, modernize clinical trial in their design, conduct, and regulatory science, and make them more suitable and fit for regulatory purposes for very small population, regardless of where these trials are being conducted, whether it's coming from academia or small biotechs. How can we really help them advance in a way that it can meaningfully reach the patient in a timely manner and support infrastructure to shorten the path to diagnosis and treatment? And we also, with the office, had here the opportunity to engage with the European Medicine Agency. And in our latest annual meeting with them, there have been 2 priorities that have been identified by the executive director on where CPAS can help them advance drug development tools and regulatory science, but also addressing unmet medical needs of EU population, and in particularly those with rare disease. So again here, a great example of global engagement and really the willingness from all the partners to come together and advance rare disease and overcome some of the hurdles that have been faced. So CPAS' mission is truly to advance and accelerate, and we will keep doing so, whether we are in Europe or in the US, working towards the same mission. And we are really committed to making RDCA-DAP a global success. And as I explained yesterday, like in Europe, they are very jealous about this tool, and they are really looking at how to make it work in Europe or have interoperability capacities with data that are being put together in Europe. And we will also help advance data sharing, and thanks to the work of Alex and the RDCA-DAP team to engage with partners across the globe. But it's also everyone's duty to try to advance global collaboration, and there are existing platforms that can be leveraged to develop evidentiary requirements in rare disease, such as ICRA, where it's only regulators, a coalition, and I believe that a lot of key discussion in how to leverage a new type of data and other activities and facilitate alignment in regulatory requirements are being discussed. ICH, but also WHO, as discussed, is also starting to look with interest into how can they help. We will truly work into developing DDTs and global regulatory science activities and making them compatible across region. And I think we all have the duty, when global funding in common areas are identified, it's important to make sure that if across regions there are tools or activities that would benefit all, we can really help and guide the different regions in going into the same direction and encourage dialogue and see how can we work together. So that's it from my side, and I will give the floor to Don before taking any question. Thank you.
Inviting me to share some comments. We at the Actress are extremely excited to be working alongside and together with CPAC in Europe increasingly, and increasingly we hope in the global setting. So I thought I'd just spend a few minutes telling you about what's going on at the Actress in the rare disease space. The Actress, for those of you who may not know, is a nonprofit. If you know about NCATS, the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, where before last year I was working, just like NCATS, National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, the Actress is really has a similar and parallel mission to accelerate the translation and the science and practice of translation from the bench to the bedside. Unlike NCATS, instead of a governmental kind of centralized effort. The Axis by design is a distributed framework that spans across Europe and UK. At the moment, it has 14 specific member states, member nations. The reach of the Axis goes all across Europe and UK, as I said. So we have 150 research institutions, across this region, and many more in the kind of snowball area around what we do. So NCATS and the Axis have been collaborating for many years. And last year, I moved from NCATS to Beatrice, next slide please, to help start a new project. Actually, previous slide, I forgot to say,
So
sorry about that. I just had to flash a slide, it's a cute graphic. I was going to say that the other similarity to NCATS is that the Axis has been around for 10 years. I think the 10-year celebration for NCATS was last year, and this upcoming year is the 10-year anniversary for EAxis. So at parallel missions, parallel age, and so in a way, just hitting our stride as well. So sorry, Cecile, next slide, please. And so I was saying, I moved to EAxis last year to help set up and run a new pan-European framework platform for drug repurposing. This is a big grant from the European Commission. And next slide. And it's based on some concepts we've been talking about for a long time in the field. In fact, this slide is borrowed from my previous slide at NCATS. And it makes a simple observation that there are probably something like 7, 8, 9,000, 10,000 diseases where we have some idea at the molecular basis. And of course, the vast majority of these diseases are rare diseases. And at the moment, there are only about 500 therapies. So a very small percentage indeed of these diseases that have any kind of clinical treatments. Next slide. And as I think we've been talking about in the last couple of days, this is such an exciting time in that not only small molecule drug discovery, but especially in the gene therapy space and gene-targeted therapies like ASOs, the rate and pace of development of new therapies, even for ultra-rare diseases. I know I see a session on M1 ASOs. This is a tremendously exciting time. Next slide, please. But on the other hand, with almost 10,000 diseases to go, actually just the previous slide, I think one observation that I think is pretty clear is that if we want to make a big dent in 95% of diseases that remain without treatment, although we can push as hard as we can on new drug molecules, gene therapies, ASOs, there's still an enormous untapped potential of drug repurposing to develop effective treatments for these rare and ultra-rare diseases. So next slide, please. And if we had more time, we could talk about all the various reasons. But one very simple observation, this goes back decades really, is the idea that the human biological and biochemical network is vast indeed, with at least 20,000 genes or more. And on the other hand, there's a much smaller number of regulatory nodes, and these are probably the ones that small molecules actually address and perturb. Next slide. And so it's very likely that these nodes that are in between very large numbers of different genes and other pathways could be affected in more than one disease. So that's why the title of this slide really is that we have, let's say, 1,000 or 1,500 approved drugs at the moment. There are a lot more diseases that these drugs could probably treat. So next slide. And however you come to these therapeutic hypotheses, whether it's from network computational analyses, traditional basic research in the laboratory using cell-based or animal models, observations in the clinic, patient work, patient reports, and you can come to the very exciting therapeutic hypotheses for repurposing an already approved drug. Next slide. But there's a long way to go. And so getting back to the point that the regulatory framework is so critical in rare disease research in the US and globally, is that at the moment, all our therapeutic hypotheses, actually previous slide stuff, is still largely at the preclinical stage or the early clinical stage. And every time there's a hypothesis generated like this, especially in the rare disease space, where very few people will have been working in a particular disease area, there's so many challenges left. And next slide, please, that's my joke slide, is that, and because these investigators and patient groups, or investors and funders may be working in the translational space in a rare disease for the first time, it just seems like we have to reinvent the whole process every single time. So not only the critical science and the clinical approaches, but as Cecile has been talking about, being able to interact and work together with the regulatory framework to, at first, get the new therapeutic hypothesis in clinical testing, through clinical trials, and eventually through market and into clinical practice. So Eactress and Remedy for All, like NCATs, are taking a kind of a boots on the ground approach, working with organizations like CPAT and others to really help facilitate the entire translational ecosystem to more practically get these new drug hypotheses, including drug repurposing and rare diseases, into clinic and hopefully into clinical practice. So next slide, please. And so this is rather schematic, and so of course I won't have time to really talk about this, but the Remedy for All initiative funded by the EC really was to put together such a framework. So again, it's a distributed platform for Remedy for All. This is across 24 different sites in 11 different countries to start out with. And as you can see from this schematic, the idea is to be able to partner with new drug repurposing hypotheses, including very much so in the rare disease space. So whether this is a patient group, an academic, a research lab, small biotech, what you see in the box labeled user projects is that such groups can work together with us. And so if there are any gaps in terms of the expertise or resources necessary to push the translation of this idea to the next stage, the idea is that Remedy for All should be able to provide those kinds of missing pieces and work together in a partnership through entry into clinical trials, regulatory approvals, and hopefully through marketing and entry into clinical practice. So next slide, please. And so as you've been talking about these last 2 days also, no matter how successful we are really on the science and clinical side, and no matter how more sophisticated we get in understanding the regulatory paths towards evaluation and approval, this really is a broad ecosystem, a global ecosystem that includes really the healthcare systems, the payers, the pharmaceutical industry, generics manufacturers, in the case of drug repurposing, and policymakers. And so the Remedy for All platform is really designed to incorporate these components as well, and it's a critical part of that, working with partners like CPAT. So next couple of slides are last slides. So next slide, I think, shows, just gives you a sense of the 24 different partners that are currently involved in the Remedy for All platform. Next slide, please. If you'd like to learn more about Remedy for All, or for a specific project or repurposing hypothesis that you might like to consult with us on, if you go to our website, you can find something called Repurposing Concierge, and we'd be very happy to connect. So the last slide is a bit of a teaser. So this is called Sneak Peek because it's confidential for all. Please don't tweet this yet until about a week from now. But as I was mentioning, we're really delighted to be able to work alongside CPAP in this global challenge in terms of the scientific, clinical, and regulatory paths for new medicines to get to patients. And we are formalizing this agreement so we can work even more closely together. So this is very exciting news for us, and hopefully in about a week you can all help us share the news too. So thanks very much, and as Cecile said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Don. Yes. So I think we have the time for a few questions, and we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you both for that presentation. I wanted to clarify, Don, something that you said. Is this focused on repurposing of approved drugs? Because something that Steph was saying yesterday is sometimes we design the trial wrong, and if it doesn't meet the expectations, then we might move on. So there are probably a lot of drugs that didn't make it to the end that could be just as useful here if you go back and look at the data from the trial and say maybe it was designed wrong or we had the wrong participants. So are you considering those as well?
Yes, absolutely. And that what we're trying to do is take a very broad definition of repurposing. I think just as you say, historically, there's been an association loosely between repurposing and the idea that we're talking about generic drugs, not even just approved drug. But I would totally agree. You know, there's a vast amount of knowledge, experience, and data on investigational stage drugs that were never approved for whatever reason. But just as you say, those reasons may not have included anything about PK or safety. Therefore, there's still a huge potential to redirect that clinical stage or investigational stage compound to another disease. So indeed, we're starting off with 4 demonstration projects just to get the platform going, and we're going to be starting to bring in new collaborative projects next year, and many of those we hope in fact will be at the investigational stage. And also just to keep in mind, it's not only just the drug substance or the drug product. Even for drug substances, there are drug products, like different formulation, let's say, that may have reached phase 1, phase 2, or even phase 3, but not ultimately approved. And those indeed also have potential of being repurposed, especially in the rare disease space. So thanks very much for the question. We're intending to keep the door as broad as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm curious if IATRIS is collaborating or liaising in any way with EveryCures here in the States, which is also working on drug repurposing, Dr. David Fagenbaum. Do you have relationships there? I just think about in terms of accelerating this really important work. Curious to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, we don't have a formal collaboration going on, but informally we see each other all the time. At meetings, we're not even 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, just one. And so what we're really thinking is that indeed we're fellow travelers. We'd love to have closer interactions and maybe even joint projects in the future.
And just an additional comment, just to add, Cecile, just in 30 seconds. David is the co-director of another consortium that we have, CDRC, and through CPATH, we want to connect the two efforts together. So we're trying to build a bridge between IATRIS and, so it's happening. Not fully ready yet, but it's happening.
Yeah, and that's why it's nice also to have an office in Europe, because we can really help to articulate the landscape and establish communication channel between different projects in Europe and US. So like as Klaus said, like we also have the CDRC for drug repurposing at CPAS, and Mark Scito and myself, we are in the scientific advisory board of remedy for all, and Mark is here, so he can help expand the collaboration to other initiatives such as the one you mentioned. So yeah, the idea is to I think the global collaboration, we have to think about it in a way that is efficient as well, how to connect the dots without, being overwhelmed by the burden of multiplying communication and duplicating efforts. And that's really what we try to do to articulate things. And we welcome any suggestion of project where we can help with this collaboration.
Actually, Cecile, can I just mention something else? This is another kind of sneak peek then. So I don't know. So thank you, class. And is Marco in the audience? Well, so hopefully Marco is okay with this. But
we won't tell him.
Okay, good. So that is sneak peek. I don't think we have a public announcement time. But because of the importance of putting together the scientists, clinicians, patients, and regulators. They're stimulated by the CP-RND CP-RND meeting last year. We have put together a new global consortium. I believe our name is settling on merit. And as I mentioned, it really is an effort led by CP-RND, EACTRIS, and several other institutions across Europe, globally, and in UK. To really strengthen this kind of glue to make sure that we're really taking harmonized and synergistic approaches towards the development of new treatments. And again, a big focus is always going to be on rare disease and ultra-rare diseases, given the potential, mass potential left in repurposing clinical stage and approved drugs.
Thank you, Dan, for this clarification. Any last question? Okay, so thank you very much for your attention, and thank you, Don, for joining remotely. Hopefully next year you're in this room with us, and thank you, everyone.